This video isn't a team building guide. I'm not going to break down usage stats or show you the best defensive cores for the current metagame. This video is about what wins games after the team builder closes. So as most of you know, I don't play in every tournament anymore. I'm not competing every weekend or laddering all night or chasing every trophy like I once used to. But I've been playing this game at the highest level for over a decade. I've won Smogon Tour. I've won the Premier League. I made it to the finals of the then biggest singles tournament on my first try. I've won when everything was on the line. And I've also lost when everything was on the line. I felt the highs of carrying a team to a championship and the lows of choking in front of thousands. I felt what it's like to play with real pressure, when it feels like your name, your team, and your reputation are at stake. But honestly, dude, that pressure shows up everywhere. Whether you're trying to qualify for playoffs, break a new peak on the ladder, or just to prove to yourself that you're getting better, we all feel it. That stress, that fear of messing up right when it matters. That's universal, and that's why I'm making this video. Because no matter how good your team is, no matter how many calcs you run, or replays you watch, if your mindset isn't there, you are not going to win when it matters. And here's the truth, this mindset doesn't just apply to Pokemon. The same things I've learned from competing at the top, focus, discipline, emotional control, these show up everywhere. Whether you're grinding towards a new ladder peak, trying to win your first tournament game, or even something in real life, pushing yourself in the gym, building a career, maintaining a relationship. How you respond to pressure, how you prepare, and how you reset. That's everything. It's about the split-second decisions when you're behind. It's about keeping your composure when your lead gets crit on turn 1. It's about trusting your prep instead of second-guessing the moment things go wrong. I've been on both sides. I've choked matches I should have won, I've tilted, I've spiraled, but I've also learned how to play through all of that and still come out on top. And that's what I want to give you in this video. Not the theory, not the mechanics, just the truth about how to win when it actually matters. So let's start off with what happens before the battle even begins, because honestly, that's where a lot of games are already lost. Tournament preparation is important, there's no doubt about it. You scout your opponent, you check their tendencies, you look at their last few teams they brought. This is all part of the game, but here's where people go wrong. They spiral, they run 40 test games the night before, they swap their team last minute, 2, 3, even 4 times. They start obsessing over every possible tech that they might face. And by the time the match starts, they're already totally mentally exhausted. And that's not called prep. That's called panic. And there's a fine line between the two. When I'm locked in, my prep is simple. I pick a team I'm comfortable with. I understand how it matches up against what my opponent usually brings. And I prep myself just as much as I prep the team. I check my mindset. Am I focused? Am I rested? Am I trusting my own plan? Because here's the truth. If you're not confident, it's no longer a 1v1 anymore. You're not just playing your opponent, you're also playing your own fear of losing the battle. That turns every match into a 1v2, and I don't care how good your team is, you're not winning that. You know, a big part of this actually comes from something deeper than prep. It's about identity. The more time you invest in this game, the more you care about improving, competing, or proving something, the easier it is to start tying your self-worth to your results. And it starts off subtle. You don't even realize it at first, but slowly, winning becomes more than just a win. It feels like proof. Proof that you're good. Proof that you're smart. That your grind was all worth it. And losing doesn't just sting. It totally breaks you. Because now, it feels like you're the failure. Not the play, not the team you brought, but you. It feels like it's all your fault. And that's called identity fusion. And it's one of the biggest traps in any competition. It turns a game into a referendum on who you are. As if every game proves whether you're good enough or not. And when that pressure builds, you don't prep clearly. You prep anxiously. You second guess everything. You're chasing perfection from a place of desperation, and that only guarantees that you're never gonna reach it. And above all, you start to spiral the second things go off script. And this doesn't just happen in Pokemon. It shows up in real life too, in your job, where one bad week makes you feel like you don't belong there. In the gym, where missing one lift makes you feel like you're back at square one. Or even in your relationships, where a rejection makes you question your own self-worth and value. It's the same mindset, confusing results with identity. But results don't define you. How you respond to them does. And the best prep you can do is not just building your team. It's separating your own self-worth from the scoreboard, your records, your history, all of that. In the beginning of this video, I said that I made it to the finals of the then biggest OU tournament at the time. This was almost a decade ago, and it was the most meaningful and high-stakes series I had ever been involved in. Up until then, I was just a kid who loved playing on the ladder and joined the tournament on a whim. But being just one win away from winning it all, I became totally obsessed and almost neurotic. I remember I had 2 weeks to prepare for that series. I'm not lying when I tell you I spent 6 hours a day stressing over teams and playing dozens of test games. I probably went through 500 different teams before I was able to settle on the ones that I wanted to bring to the best of 3. By the time I was supposed to play for the finals, I had exhausted myself so much with preparation and fear that I played 3 sloppy games and ended up losing 2-1. I was so devastated at the time, but also low-key relieved to just be done done with it all. And so I'm telling you, I really know what it's like to disguise your preparation as panic just because you want to win so bad. And for my guys out there that aren't too into tournaments and are focusing on hitting a new record peak on the ladder, I've been there myself too. The first time I got number 1 on the ladder, I was beyond nervous. I remember I made it to number 5 on the ladder a couple months before, and I told myself, what if I lose and I start tilting? I think I'll just not get any battles and stay at number 5. That's good enough for me. It took me months to gain the confidence in order to go for number 1. And to this day, I still have that replay saved on my computer. Dozens of people watching my final ladder game as I got number 1. But this time, I was totally composed, and I got it done. What I'm trying to say here is, real prep comes from walking into the game with clarity, not chaos like what I did in my finals tournament series. Confidence doesn't come from running 100 test games. It comes from knowing your tools, knowing your win con, and trusting yourself to adjust when things don't go as planned. The goal isn't to predict everything, it's to be ready for anything without losing your focus. Even with perfect preparation, things can and will go wrong. You'll get crit on turn 1, or you'll miss that key move that would have swung the game in your favor. Maybe you'll just make a bad read and lose your win condition way too early on in the game. But the real danger isn't in this bad turn, it's what comes after, because that's when tilt creeps in. Tilt isn't just being upset. It's what happens when emotions start making your decisions for you. You start rushing your own plays, you forget your win conditions, you tunnel in on getting back to a better game state instead of playing what's actually right in front of you. And when that happens, you're not really playing anymore, you're reacting. Tilt is chaos. And in that chaos, even great players throw away games that they would have won. And I know because I've lived it. In my first big finals, like I told you guys, I came in completely burned out from over-preparing, doubted myself, doubted my team, and the moment things started going wrong, I completely crashed. I wasn't playing the game in front of me, I was just trying to survive the pressure in my own head. I lost a winnable match, and not because I got outplayed, but because I let the chaos take over. If you take one thing from this video, it's this: don't ever let the game or your emotions fall into chaos. Pokemon already has volatility built in. Critical hits, misses, random damage rolls. You cannot control that. But what you can control is how mentally sturdy you are when those things do happen. And if you find that you can't handle these swings, if you can't stomach the tilting nature of this game, then I honestly suggest you try something else, like chess, because this game will test you. And unless your mindset is solid, it's going to break you. You know what's wild? This is not just mental. Tilt isn't just you getting upset. It's your own brain literally shifting into a survival mode. Let me get on my science hat real quick and break down to you guys how our brain literally works. The moment you feel that stress spike, your amygdala, which is the part of your brain that processes fear and threats, kicks in. It floods your body with cortisol, also commonly known as the stress hormone, so your heart rate goes up and your logical thinking, the prefrontal cortex, starts to shut down. That's why a single misplay can spiral into 5, and I've been there. I've had matches where one early crit made me panic. I wasn't thinking anymore. I was just trying to force momentum back. I was playing scared, not smart at all. But the shift came when I learned to catch that spiral. When tilt starts, you don't need a miracle. You need a pause. Take a breath. Zoom out. Ask yourself, what's still in my control? How do I win from here? Not in theory, but given the game state, in this exact moment. I've had games where that moment of clarity turned the entire match around. Not because I outplayed my opponent, but because I stopped sabotaging myself. Tilt control doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you're still making calculated moves, not emotional ones. And this goes way beyond Pokemon. Think about someone studying for a big exam that they've been preparing months for. They open the test and realize that the questions are much harder than what they expected. Panic starts to set in, they start rushing, second guess themselves, and in the process, they forget everything that they studied. And it's not that they don't know the material, they just let their emotions get the better of them and take over. That's what tilt is. Stress hijacking your ability to respond with clarity and composure. But you still have a say. You can breathe, reset, and choose your next move with clarity instead of chaos. Composure is not a feeling, it's a habit, and it wins way more games than any one good lucky turn ever will. Anyways, here's a good example. This here is a tournament game where I misplayed early on and then I got ridiculously unlucky, but I did not tilt. I stayed calm, I played clean, and I still closed it out. Let me show you what that looks like in real time. Alright, so let me give you a little bit of backstory on this specific tournament match. This is from a few years ago, Smogon Premier League. This is Generation 7 OU, Sun and Moon, one of my all-time favorites, and you can tell that this is Gen 7 OU because we're both rocking Magirna. He has a bulkier team, Hippo plus Sand Excadrill. I'm rocking the Psychic Spam, which, if you ever played Gen 7 OU, this has basically existed since the metagame started. And I always liked this team, one of my most consistent builds that I always used to run around with. Alakazam is just cheap. And yeah, even more backstory, I believe this was week 1 of the tournament, so nobody wants to start off a tournament with a loss, so there's some pressure there. And number 2, I was actually the #1 ranked SM player, undisputed, for this tournament, so I really wanted to win because I was always going to be expected to win, so I had some pressure there. But that being said, I really wanted to highlight this replay because it talks about the 2 things we talked about in the tilt control section, which is 1, if you make some misplays early on, how to not let that get to you, and 2, if you get unlucky, how to bounce back from that. So let's get into it. Smogon Premier League, Blunder versus Sweet Pasho. I decided to lead off with my Alakazam. I'm not going to go over the early game too much just because I want to get to the true focus, which was the tilt control part, but to explain why I led Alakazam, I just knew that he's going to want to lead off into something good versus Greninja and Kartana, and I knew Alakazam is going to be able to get the Mega Evolution off ASAP versus everything besides Tornadus. So that worked out pretty well for me. Psychic, switch out knowing that he's going to go into Magearna because he doesn't want to die to a second Psychic. So I bring in my Landorus. So automatically, to me, these first few turns went phenomenally. I got my Mega Evolution activated. I got some good chip on the Tornadus T. I got my Stealth Rock up off the rip. It's all good. You turn out immediately. I bring in my Greninja. And here's where some disaster starts to begin. I'm thinking, I'm in the driver's seat. I need to keep playing to win. I'm ready to go. I go for extra sensory trying to catch the Toxapex. No, he calls me on that. Clicks EQ. I'm thinking, it's okay. So he got me one time. It's no big deal. I'm simply going to HP Fire, predicting his Magearna. No, he calls me again, pulls my card, double EQ. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, my Greninja, which had a super effective move for everything on his team, is now dead, only having done 50% to Hippowdon, a mon that I should have just hydroed in O-Code. So I remember when I was playing this battle, I was like, bruh, no way. First game of the tournament. I'm playing like this? I was like, nah, I gotta lock in. So, no matter. I'm bringing Tapu Lele. I'm Specs. I know I can force some progress. The one good thing is, even if the Hippowdon, I didn't Hydro Pump it, I still got it to half its HP, which means Tapu Lele can come in here and click Psyshock. Automatically, actually, I just noticed I'm not Specs, by the way. I think I'm, Wise Glasses, or something like that. Twisted Spoon, rather. Twisted Spoon is the correct name. That being said, Psyshock again, and you can see I'm doing consistent good damage here. And now, despite what looked terrible when I lost my Greninja to Hippowdon, my Alakazam looks really strong into this team because Magearna is now below half, the Hippo is also below half, so I know my Alakazam has a great chance to win. So despite me messing up early on with my Greninja, the game state is not that bad because I kept Hippo low and I was able to get damage on Magearna. It's all good. Tapu Lele comes in here. I unfortunately have to sack it to the incoming Latios as I don't have a switch in. Alakazam comes in. I believe I Shadow Ball. This stuff is not that important. He brings this in. He tries to pivot around a little bit. Toxapex on Focus Blast just to go back into this and die to 2 Psychics. Goes into this. Lives Psychic because Toxapex is broken. Now, given the current game state, it looked over for him. The Latios is at 17%, 5% after rocks. Hippowdon is at 40%. Excadrill's at 100, and Toxapex is at 6%, but I have a Scarf Kartana, which means I really just go to Kartana here. I click Leaf Blade, I get a +1 boost, and I sweep, as Excadrill is not able to KO me, and Latios is outsped, because I'm Scarf. So at this point I figured, this is over. I just win. I click Leaf Blade here, he decides to go into his Hippo, but it's too late, right? I was able to recover from those Greninja plays. However, I told you there's another part of this battle. You gotta stay strong under pressure. He goes in to Excadrill, goes for Iron Head because his only play here is to flinch me. He gets the flinch. I figure, okay, that's fine. Kartana has a good physical defense stat. I can take an Earthquake still. So he has to go for another flinch, and he gets it. And I was like, oh nah. Now this is scary. Because now I am in EQ range. And if I lose this, then I'm going to lose to his last Mon Latios. Or I'm just going to lose to his Excadrill, because my Landorus is defensive. So it's slower, and it can die to +2 Z-move Iron Head. So all of a sudden, what looked like a completely guaranteed win for me, I almost started panicking, but I kept this 30. I was like, okay, I still have my Landorus. It's fine. He makes a good play here. He goes into his Toxapex as I bring in my Landorus because he knows he wants to get some HP back. I believe I go for the EQ here as he goes into Latios, which is a good play by him, knowing that I'm not going to U-turn. If I click U-turn and that clicks recover, then I'm cooked. So he made a good play there going into Toxapex, knowing that because he got the double flinch, I'm going to be forced out. That being said, I'm going to go for U-turn here because I know that if he kills me here with Ice Beam, which he's already revealed, that I'm going to sweep him immediately with Leaf Blade because I'm going to get the +1 off of this, and then Excadrill dies, and Toxapex will also die. So I just take my U-turn kill there. I bring in my Kartana. Okay, we're looking good. We're looking good. He brings in the Toxapex. I go for Leaf Blade. It doesn't kill, but it's doing half, so we're good. He goes for the Scald, and he gets the burn. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I had this. I was like, no way, no way. But then I realized one thing. My Kartana still 2-hit KOs this Excadrill, so we're good. I just have to get this 50% off, 64, which is crazy damage. I go into my Landorus, I get the Intimidate off, and then my Magearna lives Earthquake at -1 and will kill this with Hidden Power Fire. So I was like, despite all that, the double flinch and the burn, I got this. However, he flinches me again. And then he has to get one more flinch because I'm still not in Earthquake range, but luckily it doesn't happen. So yeah, basically despite the early misplay and despite the bad luck, I stayed locked in. I didn't chase the game and I didn't panic. I just focused on what was still in my control, and it paid off. That's basically the whole point of this section. You're not always going to play perfectly. The game's not always going to go your way either, but if you can hold your composure, and if you can think clearly under pressure, even when things look bad, you'll still always have a shot. This win didn't happen because I got lucky, it just happened because I didn't let the chaos get to me whatsoever. And that brings me to my next layer of this, because once you've got your emotions in check, the question starts to become, how are you actually playing the game? Are you playing to win, or are you playing not to lose? And that's a huge difference. Most people don't even realize which one they're doing. So let's talk about it next. Alright, so let's talk about playing with intent. And no, I'm not talking about some new Pokemon you should be using. I'm talking about your mindset when you're making plays in battle. So most of you have probably heard the phrase play to win by now. Everybody loves to say this in any competitive game. Play to win, and it's like, no shit bro, who wants to lose? So what does it actually mean, right? Play to win. And why do so many players, even great ones, struggle with it? Well, the issue is, they're not playing to win. They're playing not to lose. And there's a huge difference. Playing not to lose means you're constantly covering the worst case scenario. You're avoiding risk. You're playing overly safe. It's thinking about clicking protect when you should be double switching out. You're preserving your win condition, but you're never actually using it to win the battle. And the worst part about everything is that you're giving up pressure. Pressure is everything at a high level. When you apply pressure, you force your opponent to react to you. You keep the initiative. You make them second guess their own plays. You make them sweat out the timer. Every strong sequence, from killing something early, to getting a spike up, to sacking correctly, is a form of pressure. It narrows their options and keeps yours open. And that's what separates solid players from dangerous ones. But when you play not to lose, you become passive. You give up tempo. You hand control of the game over to your opponent. And I've seen this so often. This happens all the time in tournament games. Someone takes a small lead and then they freeze up. They don't want to throw, so they start playing not to lose. And that's exactly how they end up losing. On the ladder, it's when you finally hit top 10 and then start queuing like you're scared to lose your spot. You stop playing to win the game and start playing to protect your rating. And ironically, that's when your streak falls apart. But here's the shift. Playing to win means playing with intent. Every move has a purpose. You're not clicking safe moves out of fear, you're clicking the move that actually advances your win condition and puts you closer to victory. And sometimes that means making the aggressive read. Sometimes it means sacking something early to unlock better positioning later. But the point is, you're deciding, not reacting. You're playing your game, not just surviving what the opponent is throwing at you. And this is where intent matters, because playing with intent means identifying your win condition early and actively working to create the interactions that make it possible. It's not about forcing plays. It's about understanding what you need to win and how to create pressure without throwing away control. By doing that, you start to see exactly what matters in a match. You realize what you can afford to sack, what you need to preserve, and how to take the calculated risks that move the game forward without choking the position. That's the difference between staying the same and leveling up. And it's why some high-level players plateau for months, while others keep climbing. And this is where intent separates the best from the rest of them. The players who learn how to pressure from turn 1 to turn 50, those are the ones who will win the battle. Because when you're playing with intent, you're not just battling Pokemon, you're controlling the rhythm of the game. You're dictating that tempo, and you're forcing mistakes. You're taking calculated risks to secure real advantages in the game. And even if you lose, well, you lose on your terms, not because you sat there waiting for your opponent to mess up. These are the tools that turn a clean player into a dangerous one, and this is what makes an opponent terrified. So basically what I'm saying is, don't be a bot. So what does this look like in practice? Well, the next game is a perfect example. I was playing in a high stakes tournament, and from turn 1, I came in with intent. I stayed aggressive, I applied pressure, and forced my opponent into a reactive position the entire game. They never got to play the game they wanted to because I never even gave them a chance. Let me walk you through exactly how that unfolded. Alright, so this is a pretty simple tournament game I had where basically, like I said, I just kept my foot on the gas and really the opponent couldn't do anything. So I lead off with my Primarina because it's Calm Mind. I see that he doesn't really have too many good switch-ins to Water Fairy coverage whatsoever. And I also know that most people like to play reactive and lead off with Clefable rather than doing something more offensive. He could have very well led off with Tingaloo or something like that, but I knew because there's a Samurott, he's going to expect me to just want to make my reactive play and lead off with my supposed hazard lead. So I went right with my Calm Mind guy instead. Usually you'd see someone bring this in mid-game. But I was like, no, I'm just going to lead with it, start setting up, and we're going to go for it. And that's what I did. I Calm Mind, the Clefable's forced to switch out immediately. He clicks Knockoff, which loses him a lot of momentum in that battle. And he starts to realize that he really can't force me out or do any damage. I realize my Primarina, I don't need to keep it for the whole battle. I just need to do as much damage as possible. It can break through his team, so I need to take the advantage I can. There's no reason for me to be switching around or keeping it for the perfect opportunity. It has a good matchup versus his team. I can build a lead while also applying pressure, so I don't have to worry about anything there. So my Primarina is able to do a lot of damage here. He's able to get up a spike, but not before I'm able to damage and kill his Golden Go and his Ting Lu. So my Primarina let off, calm-minded, and honestly did a ton of damage. He gets up rocks here as I go for a Moonblast. Both hazards are up and I don't have removal, so he was able to get back a little bit there, but I don't give up any momentum. I switch out my Primarina rather than just sitting there and letting it, letting this Moonlight back to around 60%. I'd rather just bring in my Golden Go there and keep a free sack, and that's exactly what I do. I'm able to go for the Make It Rain, knock him out. We're not giving up any forms of momentum whatsoever. He brings in his Dragonite. We just go Landorus T, intimidate that. Make sure that it can't sweep us with Dragon Dance. Even if he does have Ice Spinner and goes for it here, I would be able to trick it anyways, so it's fine. Landorus, I bring this in so that I can break the multi-scale too, if that's what he wants to go for. My Samurott actually has Red Card, so I'm going to bring that in. I kept that healthy so that it would be able to either Red Card out this or switch in on a Zamazenta Crunch, a Deoxys Ice Beam. You guys get what I mean. Red Card was a crazy one-off tech I had, but you can see I'm not making any super reactive plays. I'm only clicking the offensive play, something that doesn't let him get anything going. Here I bring in Landorus T again, just to force this out. I'm clicking U-turn. There's no need for me to click Earthquake or anything ridiculous. There's also no need for me to get up rocks at this late in the game. We just need to bring our threats in. I bring on my Golden Go here, where Trick is very free. Stop this thing from being able to set up whatsoever as he clicks Earthquake. I'm then going to bring in my Roaring Moon. I don't even click Terra Fly here, because again, this is all Roaring Moons are Terra Fly. Obviously, I brought this into Dragon Dance and click Terra Fly. I know he's going to switch out. And then even here, obviously, it's going to click Acrobatics. I know he's going to Terra Steel. So I go for Earthquake instead. I'm not going to give up the pressure. If I click Acrobatics here, right, and I die to whatever, say I turn into a flying type and he kills me with Stone Edge or whatever the case is, I knew Earthquake had to happen, because if he kills me here, there is a reality where he ends up winning, right? Somehow with this Zamazenta or the Deoxys, and I wasn't going to let that happen. So I made all the correct triggers, got rid of that, in comes this. I now turn Terra Flying, because I have to, get in the stab boost to kill this, but I knocked that out, and that's going to be that. It forfeits because Deoxys dies. But as you can see, there was never a single turn in this game that really went his way. I just kept the pressure up entirely. So I guess it was a pretty quick game, but this was basically, I wasn't really sure what kind of game I wanted to show for this, but I really didn't want it to be anything too long. So I just picked an old game of mine where I remember I just kind of, didn't really give them an inch. So that was this one. Let's get on to the next part. So before we go any further, I want to talk about goals. Most of the people who become the best at something did not get there on accident, right? They didn't just wake up one morning and they were the best. There's usually a spark, some moment where they decide that they're going to chase this grind. Whether it's seeing someone they respect win or realizing that they have the tools to climb higher, there's always going to be a trigger. And I can tell you that for me, this happened a decade ago when I had just found out about playing in tournaments and saw matches from that year's Smogon Premier League. I told my good friend Mr. Jamvad that I really didn't think the level of those games were that high if it's supposed to be tournament. And he simply told me, okay, if you're better, go in there and show it. And so I did. And once that fire's lit, the best players, they don't just play anymore. They're building something much bigger. They reflect on their goals, they structure their practice, and they keep pushing past their plateaus on purpose. It's not always going to be about raw talent. It's about clarity and consistency. If you want to go far, take the time to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What do I want from it? What does it take to reach this level? That mindset shift will change everything. All right, now let's switch it up for a second, okay? Because no matter how great your preparation is or how clutch you are under pressure, none of this stuff is going to matter if your mindset isn't right. And this one is especially for the tournament players. So the more you care about the game, the harder it gets to keep a healthy distance away from it. And at some point, it stops feeling like just a game and it almost starts feeling personal. So now you lose a big match and suddenly it's not just, damn, I played bad. Now it's, oh, I'm not good enough anymore, or oh, damn, I fell off, or my personal favorite, oh my god, everybody saw me choke that battle. And I get it. I felt that myself. I've gone for huge amounts in draft leagues and played terribly. I've been picked early in team tournaments, had all eyes on me, and still underperformed greatly. And even when it wasn't a total blowout loss, even when I technically played fine, I still felt like I let everybody down. And of course, I let myself down too. And this kind of pressure, this does not motivate you at all, okay? It only wears you down. You start tying your identity to every outcome of every battle. You prep out of fear and you compete out of fear as well. It is totally exhausting. And eventually, you start hating the thing that used to once make you feel alive. But here's the reality, okay? You are not your wins, and you are definitely not your losses. And it's okay to care. It's okay to be disappointed. That just means it matters to you. And that's a good thing, all right? You just can't let this game decide how you see yourself. And you definitely can't hate yourself for losing. Nobody gets everything right, not even the best. And the goal here is not to be perfect. It's to learn, adapt, and keep coming back better. When we lose, most of the frustration isn't even about the game. It's about us, our identity, our ego. We get mad at ourselves, we spiral, and then we say, I just tilted. But that tilt, that storm, that's often something that we allow because it's easier than sitting with the pressure and facing what we need to change. Being calm isn't about ignoring emotion. It's about refusing to let it override your decision making. And I'm telling you right now, you have to train that part just as much as you train your end games or team building or any of that. Be real with yourself, sure, reflect, improve, but don't freak out. Don't turn one loss into a full-on identity crisis. The truth is, most of us are never gonna learn how to lose properly. We act like every loss defines us instead of just teaching us something. We internalize it, antagonize ourselves over it, replay it in our heads like it says something about who we are. But losing is part of growing. Even the best players in the world take painful L's. They just don't let those moments change their identity. And when you don't have that separation, when your whole identity is fused to your results, you lose the ability to actually play with any freedom. You start trying to protect something and stand still instead of building something and moving forward. And that's when you fall off. You second guess. You tighten up. You stop taking the risks that once made you dangerous. Tilt doesn't always just look like raging in game, right? It's not just me getting mad because I missed Ruination with my Ting Lu. Sometimes tilt is just you being stuck in your own head, hesitating, playing scared, losing your rhythm because you can't stop thinking about how much this one particular match matters so much. That's the mayhem you need to avoid. And that starts with how you talk to yourself. You've got to protect your own headspace, not just while you're playing, but once the game's over too. Because the pressure, it's gonna add up. Expectations pile on, and if you're not grounded in yourself, it's going to mess with your confidence, your decisions, your whole drive to compete is going to get messed up. But if you can hold it down, if you can stay clear, even when stuff starts going sideways, that's where real edge will come in. Because at the end of the day, like I keep trying to tell you guys, it's not just about preparations or having great mechanics. It's all about trusting yourself when the match gets uncertain, and it's about keeping your head on straight when shit hits the fan. Like, you really do not have to be perfect, but you just have to be locked in. Because the players who figure this out, the ones who can just care about the game without crumbling over any small misfortune, the ones who can lose without losing themselves, those are the ones who are actually going to go the full distance and go on to become the best. And there's absolutely no reason that that can't be you. Alright guys, and that's about all I have here for this video. I could have definitely gone more in depth on some of these sections, but I did not want this video to be too long, and I really wanted to touch on each topic that mattered to me. If you guys did like this type of video and want to see more, then do let me know in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to expand on any of the topics I brought up in this video and more. I'd like to think that I have a pretty good grasp on the psychology of the game, even though I know I always joke around in my videos and say not to take it too serious. I know what it's like to compete at the very top, as I said, and I want to be able to expel any myths around competition and what it takes to have a sturdy mindset. Real quick, I want to thank my guys Joey, 3D, and Lax for proofreading my script in early recordings, as this took me a lot of tries to get to this version of the video that I was truly satisfied with. And of course, this video is only so beautifully edited because of my boy Pyro Joe, also known as Splash Plate. He did the whole thing. Please do go subscribe to him. He's absolutely phenomenal at what he does, and he makes incredibly good competitive videos as well. And finally, I have to give a huge shout out to Mr. Jambed. He is the original teacher when it comes to this game. He taught me a lot about mentality, and he is the first person I know that would extrapolate things he learned from Pokemon to his real life and tell me to do the same. He built an incredible community with the Academy. He birthed a lot of the modern day tournament scene and its users, so I just wanted to say big shout outs to the boss, Mr. Jam. Go check out his book, The Art of War, for competitive Pokemon players if you really want to get into the nitty gritty behind the psyche when it comes to competition. But that's it from me guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.